Weather Wagers is back for another week. We apologize about some technical issues last week, but here we are, and we have a loaded show going on here for this week. And it's really all about the Phillies, and believe it or not, there is a weather issue affecting the Phillies the day of this taping, Wednesday. So the purpose of the podcast rings true as always. I want to bring in Dave Shiner because our good friend Brett Thacker, he is in Alaska. He's actually enjoying 60-degree weather rather than 90-plus degree weather with humidity. Mr. Shiner, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I can't say we're vacationing the way Brett is, but
Of course.
Going back to my main point, how I just started the conversation, Phillies in trouble today in terms of weather. They were supposed to have, I think, a 2 o'clock-ish first pitch in Chicago, but the line of storms that comes through Pennsylvania on Thursday is coming through Chicago on Wednesday, the day of this taping, and already there is a delay. And Tom McCarthy not being very optimistic about when this thing could actually start. So are you disappointed there's no afternoon baseball yet, Mr. Shiner?
You know, I always like to have a nice afternoon game because you actually get to see all of it. You know, being a father of two and all that, sometimes those, especially those West Coast games, get a little late. But, you know, I always like the 1 o'clockers, get to see the alternate jerseys usually for those games as well. But, you know, hey, we'll see what the weather does. And, you know, it's an aptly named podcast,
right.
Is it not?
And, you know, the unfortunate part about this is whatever delay there is could impact how things play out over the next couple of days. Now, obviously, they get an off day for Thursday, but back at it on Friday at home. And I'll get into the schedule in just a little bit. But, you know, the underrated part about baseball is when you have interruptions in the schedule, it can interrupt travel plans, and that also can lead into the next game. And we've seen some sluggish play here and there, and that's how I want to start things out. Since the All-Star break, it's been kind of a mix. And going back to the Angels series where they drop 2 out of 3 to a team that's trying to hover around 500. I know a lot of fans were unhappy about that. What did you see over the 3-game stretch? I mean, just a lot of inconsistent play, I guess.
Yeah, you know, you really want your horses that are the starters there on the pitching mound, you know, leading you through some of these games. And, you know, it's a roller coaster ride as it usually is with these Phillies. It's like when the pitching's on, maybe the bats are going silent, and then sometimes, you know, even a guy like Wheeler puts a couple up there real quick, and then all of a sudden here comes a Schwarber or a Harper homer that kind of even the scale, and they end up getting away with a win here and there. But they did bounce back after the Angels,
yes, they did.
as we said, taking 2 or 3 out there in New York, and you know, had some nice long ball action out there too.
Yeah, the ball was flying. So weather impacting sports again. It seems like it doesn't take much for the ball to leave the stadium in Yankee Stadium. And even before that, they beat a very hot Boston Red Sox team. So 2 very good measuring sticks, if you will. You have the Yankees, you have the Red Sox taking 2 of 3, and then you go on the road. You continue the road trip into Chicago. They drop game 1, and it's all of a sudden, again, the sky is falling for this team. It's as soon as they trip up, and I don't know if you noticed this on social media, Dave, but it's as soon as there's any type of blip, it's like the season's over, everything's crashing and burning. This is not the Philadelphia Eagles. We mentioned this in the first podcast, but the patience level just seems to be so low with this team.
Yeah, and, you know, even, you know, the game that went last night, you know, to the day of our recording here, you know, they were up 6-0, and here we put in some of the relievers, and here comes 3 runs. Now, luckily enough, they had enough pad to kind of get out of the game there with a W, but, you know, for a team that I think, and some of the pundits early on were saying, you know, this might be the best bullpen in all of baseball, let alone with the starting rotation. Well, hey, starting rotation's taking a hit. You know, obviously we lost Nola here for a little while. You know, Jesus has been up and down. Wheeler's gotten knocked around. Ranger has his stuff, still gets some wins. But you always thought that bullpen was going to be the ones that really took us through here. And you know what? They've kind of been the thorn in the side here and there, you know. And then they did make some moves here to try to help out. I think the big thing is obviously, without our 100-mile-an-hour you know, guy out there, you know, on his little suspension, and we will be getting him back here in a couple days, I believe. But obviously, going to be no help in the postseason. So, you know, Dan, tell me, I mean, is this team good enough to get us through the playoffs? I mean, they're hanging around. They're still in one of the top 5 records in baseball, but we can't just go with the Schwarbars and the Harper homers to get us through. We need the pitching too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very interesting question because the whole landscape of Major League Baseball is confusing this year because a lot of the perennial good teams do have bullpen problems. The Mets have their share of bullpen problems. They had a reliever not cover first this week, and they got shipped out to AAA as a result. That Husker Brazoban play that's been over and over again replayed on social media because they blew a 5-run lead. So the Mets have bullpen issues. The Braves had bullpen issues, and they're obviously in worse straits than either Mets or Phillies. But the Dodgers have significant pitching problems, and you would have thought they were Teflon-proof with the signings they made. You go over and look at the Padres. The Padres have the best bullpen, but have really cruddy starting pitching at times. So it's really muddied water. The Brewers seem to be the most complete team right now, and they started out very, very cold in April and May. And that's why, we record this podcast on Wednesday, but something cataclysmic is going to happen in the baseball world, and that is the trade deadline. And I think the Phillies will add a pitcher. I mean, the Alvarado thing has cost them in multiple ways. His suspension obviously hurting them during the regular season, but then he's not available for the playoffs. So he'll come back, pitch for the Phillies, maybe pitch some meaningful innings, but then he's not available for the playoffs. So now you have to probably spend some prospect capital, moving some of your young players from AA, AAA, maybe even single A, and now you have to fix that bullpen hole. And I think they will get somebody. Now, the question is it Ryan Helsley? Is it Duran of the Minnesota Twins? Is there a David Bednar deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates? Those are the names that are being thrown out there. I think, again, it's going to be someone significant. There's no question they know where the upgrade on the team has to come from. Now, that being said, they've had 3 really good relievers this year out of the pen. They've had Orion Kerkering, who may be a closer in the future. They've had Matt Strahm, and they've also had Tanner Banks, which coming into this season, you would have told me he was going to pitch some meaningful innings. Yep. I would have said you're crazy. But Tanner Banks is a good example. He was a kind of below-the-radar move last year at the trade deadline, and he's pitching very, very well out of that pen. So bullpens are very volatile, but I think they make a move. The question, I think, I want to pose to you, if you're Dave Dombrowski, who do you bring in as a hitter to this lineup to make a difference? I mean, there's not a ton out there, and the breaking news coming into this show, and I don't know if you've even seen this, you've been busy with other things, football media day happening here.
Yep.
It appears the Los Angeles Angels are not selling players. They are buying. They purchased the contracts through trade of 2 different relief pitchers. So the question is Taylor Ward, Joe Adell even available? Taylor Ward was kind of my guy to bring into this lineup. I'm not really sure where I see the improvement in the lineup coming from.
Yeah, on WIP a couple days ago, Ruben Amaro Jr. was on, and he was saying that he thinks the Phillies are 3 players away from being a quote-unquote great team. Now, what does that mean? I mean, basically, he got pressed on the issue and was like, well, if they win the World Series, they're a great team.
Sure.
However, this was right after bringing our good buddy Dave back, Dave Robertson, and I don't even think he's come up out of AAA yet.
Yeah, he's not eligible to return yet. So
exactly.
There's a time period. So in the next week, you probably will see him.
Exactly. So they were like, is this post that acquisition? And he was like, well, yeah, I think so. He's going to be a good asset. Now, I mean, the guy is 40 years old.
Right.
I mean, how much are we getting out of him? He still has to do his farm team stint and what there. But, after stints with us in 19, 22, and 25, it always seemed like he was there for a couple days, and then we never really got him at his full capacity.
He's definitely an upgrade over Daniel Robert or Seth Johnson.
You would think so.
Going to swap out there. And again, they get Alvarado back here in August, and he will pitch big innings for them down the stretch. So they do get some help there, but I think Ruben Amaro Jr. is right. And there are some rumors out there that Dave Dombrowski is going to go big. So when I hear that, the only guy I can really think of is Stephen Kwan.
Yeah, I think he's the guy. I mean, he's a 2-year All-Star, 3 Golden Gloves. He's got a lifetime batting average of 288. Not a ton of power out there. I mean,
but he has hit some home runs in the last couple of
days. He has. It's not like Suarez coming out of Arizona, who's got 35 home runs right now, that I think would be that big bat.
But then you got to put Bryce in the outfield potentially.
Well, and I have seen reports that Bryce is willing to take that role. Just to get that big bat. But how long of is that a rental? Do we get him just for the season? I mean, he's not a young buck by any means, but definitely if you can add 30-plus homers even in July, I think huge. You take that. Now, what do you give up? And this is where I defer to you. In all of these fantasy scenarios, I mean, are we clearing out the farm system? I mean, do we shop Painter? Like, what do we even give up? Do you move on from a guy like Marsh or even Rojas? You know, I mean, because if you the defense seems to always kind of be there.
Right.
I mean, even our buddy Max. I mean, Max Kepler's come through a couple times, but is he expendable? You tell me.
I think Max is probably a DFA candidate if they get an outfielder. So if you get a Steven Kwan, Max Kepler's not on this team. My question is, do you get Steven Kwan plus a Ramon Laureano, who's probably a lower trade piece, but still will have some meaningful at-bats? I think, unfortunately, we are at the point that this squad together, unless they re-sign Schwarber, they re-sign Real Muto. By the way, Real Muto, the hottest player on the Phillies right now in terms of offense, which is crazy to think about based on the last 365 days of his career.
Best catcher in baseball. Yeah, I say it every time in text message to you when he has a big hit.
It's really wild, but he's batting, I think, over 400 in July. But
insane.
Regardless, I think this is the year to push in the chips, and I think Abel's very much on the table. I think he was kind of showcasing himself in that call-up, and that might have been on purpose. They'll never telegraph that, but that might have been on purpose. I think you stop short of selling Andrew Painter because they've invested so much time in him, and it's likely Ranger Suarez does not come back. And so you need to slide someone into that role. I think Andrew Painter slides there next year, potentially. And then the other question is Aidan Miller, who's been a favorite of mine. He might be one of our best positional prospects we've had in a decade or two. He's not hitting well right now, but again, with prospects, you can't look at snapshots in time. You got to look at development. I really think Painter and Aidan Miller are untouchables at this point. I could be wrong, maybe in the right deal. If you get a Steven Kwan, maybe you get a pitch or two from Cleveland, maybe he is gone. The other guy that's interesting is Justin Crawford. If he was an answer for the Phillies, I think he'd already be up. I think they're telegraphing that they're not sure what he is. And part of the problem is, and this will frustrate fans, is that he's a ground ball hitter. He's not going to hit out of the yard. We already have a low power production outfield. I don't think they want to double down on that, and I think that's why you haven't seen him. So I think he's the number one trade piece. That's just my opinion, kind of reading the tea leaves. I think he's what they give up in a package.
Well, you know, hopefully, Dombrowski does something here to kind of get us to the next step. But you know what? This team does have 60-plus wins in July. It's not like they're hovering around 500. Now, it seems like once we get to that 15, 16 games above 500s where, now here comes a couple losses. But you know what? Every team in baseball is kind of hanging around there right now.
And that's, I think, kind of the point, and that's why it's questionable. Will they go totally all in? Another interesting tidbit I saw today, and it was just a very brief tidbit, is the salary concerns. And essentially right now, if you sign a player like David Robertson and say he's making $5 million to the team, it's actually the equivalent of about $10 million because of the tax on that. Now, does John Middleton care? It doesn't seem like he has in the past. But again, every player now costs more than the face value. Again, not my money. I don't really care. Fans don't really care. But maybe this
Bryce Harper doesn't care, apparently, if you've seen some of the comments he's had lately.
Yeah, Bryce Harper said cap. I don't want to cap, and he was very, I'm not sure I could talk about it here on this podcast.
There was an expletive or two used in his
he was very forceful with
analysis,
the commissioner of baseball saying, get out of here. So, again, money might be somewhat of a consideration. It's hard to say. Ticket sales have been very good. Last check, NBC Sports Philadelphia was #1 in regional television rankings for baseball this year. So I think the money's coming in. I would like to see, again, things kind of push forward. The final thing I'll say about the trade deadline is there were some other kind of mixed messages coming out of the clubhouse that perhaps they are looking for a big move, the players themselves, that the veterans really want to see a move being made and that there could be dissent in the clubhouse if there isn't a move made. I think that's an interesting angle too, that maybe it puts a little extra, emphasis for the front office to do something. We've seen this in the past, maybe not with this team, but other teams that don't make the right moves, the team kind of folds. So, this could be a really big pivot point. Are you looking forward to the deadline? I know I am.
I'm very torn because I obviously want the team to get better. But I also, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of deal. As you and I have always talked about, you have these lulls and these high points in baseball. It's just in 162 games, you're not going to get your top players every single night, and that's why it's so hard to hit a round ball with a round bat, let alone throw gas for 9 straight innings. It's just not something that happens every single day. Guys have their stuff. Sometimes they don't hitters go into slumps. Sometimes they're unstoppable. And one guy that's kind of unstoppable right now is a Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
I think since he got back in July, he's hitting 293, 10 doubles, and 6 home runs. A total of 16 extra base hits in just the month of July.
And
so hopefully that's fixed.
Yeah, some of those peaks and extra base hits were career highs for him. So obviously he's feeling better. That's the good news. And Kyle Schwarber is the legitimate MVP candidate. JT Realmuto, as I mentioned, is the hottest catcher in baseball other than Cal Raleigh, which is he's just been having a phenomenal year. Kyle Schwarber also the focal point of the home run derby that ended the All-Star game. I mean, again, the Phillies are in the national spotlight right now. Trey Turner's having a phenomenal year at shortstop, leading the National League and hitting at least going up and down in that #1 mark. So there's a lot to like. I want to move on real quick because we're also huge Eagles fans here, and I know Brett will be proud of us for bringing up football. Eagles training camp, very, very hot.
Yes,
Perhaps
sir.
some tempers have flown at points. I know there's been a lot of hitting, and that's kind of been a criticized point that Saquon Barkley's actually taking hits in training camp.
Like they used to?
Right.
I mean, it's only been the last 5-10 years here that it's
slowed down, right.
Slowing down with no pads and all this. But the heat itself, the physical heat, has been rising out there on the training camp as well.
Yes, and I want to provide a quick little quip from Vic Fangio, our defensive coordinator for the Eagles, saying that the heat is just a mindset. He's out there in a sweatsuit out on the practice field coaching the defense, which I just find bizarre. But apparently to him, if you don't think it's hot, it's not hot. The defense is one area I want to point out that there's really been no major injuries, knock on wood, for the Eagles so far. Other teams have dealt with major injuries already.
Yeah.
But they seem thin again at cornerback and safety. Should we be concerned? This kind of happened last year, too. That was kind of the talk at camp.
You know, and you obviously went all in on this young secondary.
Yep.
You know, so I think they're kind
Ringo.
they're putting all their chips in, saying, you know what? We trust in Vic. In Vic, we trust. And
the system, yep.
You know, and he's been able to prove that kind of wherever he's going outside of Miami, because it seemed like the players just didn't buy in over, down south there. But I trust in Vic, and you know, I'm more concerned about our linebacker situation,
Yep, that's
our
also
edge
thin.
rusher situation. I feel good about it. Obviously, with the linebackers, we're really concerned. Is Nakobe Dean going to be able to get some playing time early?
He's out there moving a sled, I saw, so that's a good sign.
That's a good sign. But just today, one of our draft picks, Jahad Campbell, is lighting it up at training camp. Now, of course, everybody always looks in their best physical
Best shape of their
peak
lives
right
deal,
now
yep.
during it, but he's turning some heads, especially on some days where Zach Bond's gotten some rest and he's just making plays all over the field. So, you know, maybe we are okay. And even yet again, we're going all in on these young players.
Cooper DeJean, another guy.
And even on the edge rushers. I think they really think that Nolan Smith Jr. and Jalix Hunt are going to be the big production guys as far as coming off the edge.
Yeah,
well, what do you
Jalix
think?
Hunt
Do you
seems
think
like a gamble,
they're the next step and ready to roll?
Well, I mean, how much success have we had bringing in veterans? Not much. So, you know, the youth movement seems okay at this point, but it just seems a little thin and a little tenuous, especially if there are injuries. But, you know, I think it is a product of the system. But if they could continue to get pressure, and we'll see this, you know, in week 1, week 2, if they get pressure and kind of help the secondary a little bit, that can play. I mean, that'll work throughout the season.
Of course.
If they don't get the pressure and the secondary gets exposed, then there's going to be a lot of questions. So, you know, the units kind of have to work together, as we know. I will be very curious. You know, I thought Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, while his numbers were not like through the roof, his energy level, what he brought to the
Locker
table.
room guy.
I felt like they just had a little bit of an edge to them last year. Him not being there, Slay not being there, it's going to look different.
It is. And it's not going to be this, like, let's run it back kind of mentality. But, you know, you get rid of some dead weight in Huff. I think that was
weird.
Never really made sense. He was even saying during training camp last year that he didn't feel like he fit. But they did bring in a veteran with Obo Orakwa. I always want to make sure I say that right.
I'm glad you said it because I didn't want to say it.
Well, I didn't say his whole name. I went with the Obo. But, you know, I mean, he's a 4 or 5 sack guy the last couple of years in Cleveland, you know, but the way Vic runs this system, they want guys just getting in
turning
and out, in and out. So maybe a guy like that that's not playing every snap really takes advantage of the time he is on the field.
Well, and let's hope that someone like Jordan Davis, who now will get a bigger opportunity, there's no Milton Williams.
Slim down Jordan Davis, down 26 pounds.
He might be in the best shape of his life.
Well,
it's hard to say.
So Vic says.
And Jalen Carter obviously is an animal. So as long as those guys stay healthy, I feel pretty good. But it's so hard to repeat. They're trying to keep the mindset of it's not about repeating. It's about doing our thing. It's about executing, taking one play at a time. Don't look ahead. They seem to be saying the right things. But man, am I excited to get this going. Hall of Fame game coming up very soon. So we're in that time of the year.
It's going to be here before you know it, for sure.
All right, so I think that's all we have for this week. We're going to do this again, you and I, just without Brett, next week for one more week, and then he returns to the show, and I think we're going to hit college football hot and heavy then. Thanks for listening to Weather Wagers. Again, we'll have more updates about the Phillies post-trade deadline, any updates coming out of the Eagles camp, and plus, we didn't even talk about Penn State in this episode, so there's more to come about that. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again real soon.